Do you think that there's a platform that's like the best to influence on? I have a thought on my thought, but I'm curious.
Now I want to know your thought. Okay, I'll tell you yours if you tell me mine. I think TikTok is the best for going viral.
Yeah.
For sure. There's no doubt about that. Instagram, I think, is where you can like keep people a little longer. YouTube has never really been a place that like we have played in. Obviously, it is a huge platform. There's tons of money to be made there. Tons of collaborations happen there. We've just like really hyper-focused on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, I would say, TikTok for virality and Instagram, you want to like get them over there to like hold them a bit longer.
Yeah. Exactly what I actually was going to say. So that makes me feel very smart.
You got it.
But I was going to say, because with TikTok, I recently went to an influencer event with Later. It was like a Later on TikTok kind of thing. And they brought a bunch of French Canadian influencers to come and talk about TikTok.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting listening to them talk. And what I actually found the most interesting about it was that like none of them had funnels. Like into other things.
Yeah.
So it would be like, they were like, oh, like I represent beauty brands. And I'm like in social media land, so my perspective's a bit different.
Yeah.
Like where I'm kind of like, you need to get everybody on an email list. Like you need to be, because like TikTok can go away tomorrow.
I said the exact same. I was doing an interview yesterday with CBC about
casual.
I know, it was very unprompted, and I'm like, sure, what do you need? But they were talking about the closure of the TikTok offices in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Which came very much out of the blue, and like what, when, how, why. But yeah, we talked about that a lot, and I said to them too, like our advice has always been to creators, like you do not own these platforms; they are rented space.
Yeah,
someone can come and away from you anytime.
Yeah.
So as like old school as it might be, I'm like, e-newsletter lists are where it's at. Like try and keep them there. Like give your audience a place to find you no matter what, or at least have a direct line of communication with them if your account gets taken down, if TikTok goes down, if Instagram goes down, God forbid.
I know.
But but if it did, like where do people find you, or like how can you access them really quickly? And I think email newsletter lists, like I'm there. I'm right there with you. Like it is one of the most valuable assets you can have as a creator.
And it doesn't have to be hard. Like I think that's another piece too, is that like I think people think of the email lists are like these huge like tech things, and they're not. There's like so many easy platforms. But it was just so interesting because these people were like very successful like creators, like hundreds of thousands of followers, and didn't have an Instagram, or like their TikTok led to a lot of products that weren't theirs. And I was like, these people were full-time creators. I'm like, that's your livelihood that you're putting kind of like, and I wonder like too, like, maybe that's probably part of like the guidance that you guys provide around like helping people kind of build a full infrastructure.
For sure. And I think it's interesting with like the brands and things like that. And you can either be directing people to someone else's brand or your own, but I think like there's pros and cons with both. Like I feel like I'm certainly not saying to every single person like, oh, you should start a brand, unless it's something that's like, again, like super genuine to them and they feel like very called to do that. If not, I'm kind of just like promote other people's.
100%.
That seems best, and then you can change your mind, right? You can be like, you know what, last week I promoted, not last week, but like a couple of months ago I promoted this self tanner. Now I tried this one, I love it. Like I love this one for this reason or that reason. Like it's okay to do that. So I think certainly not in the business of like pushing everyone to start a brand if it doesn't feel like super, super, super right for them.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious for you, like just thinking about, influencers and thinking about brands, like how core has relationship building been to the growth of and the scaling of your business?
It's huge. Like there's no question. Because like talent can change, right? As we said, talent go up and down, and there's trends with talent in different categories and things like that. But the brand partnerships and like the PR agency partnerships are so important. We've always hosted big events and things like that. It's been like a very, very important part of that, because we're big believers that people want to do business with people who they can have some fun with. And it's, like we're in our emails all day. Like it can be so boring. Like, if you don't make it fun, it's boring.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. So it's so funny now. Like I see the emails that like some of our team write, and it's just, I don't know. It's so different to like, I don't know, my like original life in the corporate world and things like that. I feel like now like half the emails like, hi, sweet angel girly pop.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because I'm like, I worked in higher ed previous, so it was very different. Very different. And so like people will be like, don't have capacity for that. I'm like, what? When you say capacity, I'm curious.
Capacity is our most used word.
Yeah. I'm like, is there a limited amount? I was given an unlimited amount, so I'm curious, but it's funny.
I agree. And like capacity is a very like elastic thing to me.
Yes.
And, like, because like it can expand, you know, like it's, and I think when you're doing things that excite you, like your capacity all of a sudden is like a little more stretchy. So it is interesting. And I think just like the way we do work now is different, but I'm like, I want, like, it's nice for people to have these kind of candid, more relaxed relationships. I also think it makes work like more profitable. Yeah. Because now, like when you're emailing someone, you don't have to be like, hi, I'm Jess. I'm the co-founder of Shine. This is what I'd like to talk to you about today. Like I truly believe no one wants to read that kind of email. But like if you're able to have a call with someone, and like I've said this I mentioned to you before we started recording, like I'm the queen of overcommitting. Like the number of people that I say to, I'm like, if you have a question or like you need someone, just text me. And like text me, I will voice note you back. Like, I'm at capacity for that, I think.
How many unread texts do you have?
None.
Oh, I love this for you.
I'm not an unread texter. No, they're all read. There might be like, I don't even know if there's any that are like not responded to. I'm pretty good with me keeping up with my correspondence.
Oh, I love
but no, there's not. I'm not leaving them unread and leaving my email unread. Like there's no emails in my sorry, that's not true. So I am very guilty of this. My inbox, everything is read.
Yeah.
Nothing is filed.
Sorry, no. You have thousands of emails in there?
I think in my actual inbox right now, I have about 200,000 emails. It's a real red flag. Don't tell.
Would you?
Yeah, they're just all there.
Is that like something you aspire to change, or are you happy there?
I'm happy there. Okay, then I feel like really comfortable in that. It gives other people like extreme panic. Yeah. I'm very aware of that. But like it's my inbox and like I will treat it as I wish.
It's a reflection, I think, too, of like the way we like to organize. Like I personally am like, anytime I hit over 20 in there, I'm like, can't go on.
And occasionally I do like aspire to be that kind of person. I think I just am like, I just know it's not me. So I'm like,
good for you.
Why change? I'm not changing for anyone.
Yeah, you've done well to this point. You're fine.
I think I like to know that I'm like, everything's there.
Yeah.
You know, like it exists in some kind of findable fashion.
I'm just letting you know, and I think you know this, but like I'm just going to tell you, you could make a reference folder and slide things in there, but it would still exist.
So I think if like I were to do anything, what I'd do is like select all, and then I would drag them into a folder called like 2015 to 2024. And I maybe could do that 1 year on December 31st and then just like start a whole new life, like new year, new me vibe.
Oh my gosh.
But like, I just think it's like, I think I'm too far gone.
Yeah. Sometimes we get in too deep.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine.
Things. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think the relationship stuff this is something we talked about like kind of on a lot of the other podcasts we've done today, which is this idea that like people love to do business with people that they like.
Yes.
You know, and so even when I like do investor calls and stuff, we were kind of talking about this as both of us do investing. It's like, I'm like, oh, I didn't get a great vibe from that person. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really want to give them money.
Of course not.
You know, and that's such a funny thing.
Yeah. And I like, it's always been like that at Shine. And like, it's nice. And like, I think as I was saying, like, when I say to people, like, if you have a question or you need someone to like, I'm like, you want to brainstorm something? Like, there's no budget in that, like for us, like in the short term, but it means that like next time that person emails me or I email them, I'm like, hey, want this, want that? Like it's so easy. It makes that relationship so casual then. And like, that's just a space that I like to operate in. Like I'm not a formal person really in any way, shape or form. So I like that. And I really encourage the team to do that. I'm like, talk to people before you need something. Like develop that relationship and be like, hey, like I represent talent, but like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you working on? What are like if it's a PR agency, what are the brands that you work with wanting right now? Like what kind of creators are they looking for? Like, what's what's the word on the street? You know, like that kind of vibe. And then it's like, it's just such a more natural like it's a conversation. It's not a, hey, I'm really trying to place these talents somewhere. Like, do you have any brands that will work with them? Like, I don't know. I've never liked to work like that. I feel like it's more of like, let me extend the olive branch. Like, can I help you brainstorm something? You're like, and then people open up to that, right? They're like, you know what? I've actually been looking for someone who's in like, I'm looking for a dental influencer. And I'm like, we don't represent anyone, but I know we have in the past had a few dental influencers cross our path. So let me find them. I'll just flip them to you. You know, like I just like to operate like that. I think it helps. It does help in the long run. Like it's strategic, but not in like an icky way.
Yeah, like not a mastermindy kind of way.
I'm not like, oh, I'm trying to like secretly get you now so that like you'll give me business later. Like it's not like that, but that is what happens as a result of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And that's how like all my best businesses happened, has been just like relationships where I'm like, oh, like what do you need?
Yeah.
Oh, what kind of introductions are you looking for? You're looking for an investment opportunity, or like you're looking for this, like happy to make an intro. And then if something cool comes of it, great. And if not, great. Like,
exactly. Like we were talking about a brand that we've already invested in, and you were looking at doing the same thing. And I'm like, it's just like, it's good for all of us if they get fully funded. Like I hope that your network would bring other opportunities for them, and mine would too. And then together they get acquired and we all run off into the sunset. How perfect. You know, like I feel like there's so many situations, and I think women are so good at seeing this and doing it. But like, we know that it doesn't have to be like, oh, I've got this, so I've got to like hold it really close to my chest. If I have it, like you can have it too, and then we could like all benefit from it, right? Yeah.
Do you feel like that's the attitude of your industry? Because I think the women I collaborate with, that is the attitude of like, you know, like I see her doing it and therefore it's possible. Yeah. Not I see her doing it, therefore there's no room for me. Yeah. Do you feel like that's the
very much
norm?
So? I mean, obviously I can't speak for every single agency. Like that's just like not the case. But I know I talk often to other agency owners who like you could look at as competitors. And I certainly don't. I feel like I have so much value to give to them. They have value to give to me. Yeah. It works really well, even if for nothing else, to be like, this is crazy, right? You know, like even if it's just for someone to be like, oh my gosh, we had that happen last month. And I'm like, I'm not alone. Okay. You know, like, and I'm like, I have a business partner. So like, I'm very thankful to have that kind of support, and we're very much like, we're in it together. Yeah. But it's sometimes hard to even look outside of like our Shine universe. So when I see other people, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a problem that is like universal. And even though it's still a problem, it just like makes you feel a little bit better about it.
100%. Even like I find with my agency and other agencies, like having so many like agency friends, it's like so good to just be like, hey, this client did this and that's weird, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's weird. Yeah. When normally it's like so easy to take things personally, or to be so like in it, right? When we're so deep in our work. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I love that about this industry, and my experience has been that it's so collaborative, and I love it. What is like your advice for somebody who is like a trailblazer in their industry? So say like, much like you, also I think all amazing Canadian ideas come from, this is done everywhere but here, and now I feel like that's how our event started. Was I was like, so weird that no one runs any entrepreneurial events, like no one wants to do that. And then in the States there's like one every day, every 48 hours. So I'm curious for you, like, you know, somebody who sees it elsewhere but doesn't see a clear path forward kind of in their area, or like what were some of the things that were key to your success? That's such a good question. Lots of things. Timing, absolutely. It just played a factor. But that said, as we just talked about, like I don't think that doing it now, like, so I wouldn't look at it as time is not on your side now. But for us, like we started Shine at a time that was just like, we just got to ride the first wave. So like, that's awesome. But now when I look at other agencies started, I'm like, but you get to start with all this standardization. Yeah. So like there's pros and cons for both of it. I'm like, you start when rates start at more like $5,000. We started at $50, you know? So like you kind of get the differences there. $50. Oh God. Woof. Profit margin on $50. I'll tell you this much. It's not much.
But yeah, so you can kind of get the best of both worlds. And I think, this can be said really for any industry. If you see a space where you think there's an opportunity, like the number one thing you have to do is be brazen enough to do it.
Yeah.
Really, right? Like I think that stops probably 95% of people being scared and being like, oh, I don't know, maybe there's already someone doing this, or maybe this business is kind of similar and maybe there's not enough space for me. I think to begin with, like, you have to just be like, there is space for me.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, you won't know if you didn't try. So I really think that that's like, I look back on Shine, I'm like, oh, we were just like so ballsy with so many things. And we were just like, we talk about this a lot now, because now like we have a lot more structure. We have like a COO who like keeps us in line. You know what I mean? She like talks to us about budget and we're like, no, we'll never listen. But like, it's funny because we talked about this, like in the early years of Shine, we just said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Like, if someone was like, oh, we really need this, or we really need this, and I really want to go to this event, we're like, go. Like, and I think we're now like, yes, I do want to be more cautious of budget. I want to understand our profit margins in a different way. Being like that did get us here. It really did, because we were just like, let's try everything. And lots of things worked and lots of things didn't, but we tried it all. And I think that helped us really, what's the word I'm looking for? Really like hone in on what our service offering is, what we're really good at, what our strong suit is, so that we could just be really confident in that offering, Yeah. And I think that came from just tons of trial and error. And so where I'm like, oh, maybe we could have like been much more profitable if we'd kind of just stuck to this or just done that. I'm like, yeah, but I really don't think we would have scaled in the same way. And we had to just have a bit of a like, F around and find out attitude with it to be able to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that advice, because I think it's so easy. I see with lots of business owners, like, 'cause we similarly, we've scaled really quickly, but we've reinvested so much back in the business, where it's been like, I'm like, oh, like, we should do this mastermind, or we should get in this room, or, I want to invest in this business. Like, let's do this. And it's always led to more, better, bigger.
Yeah.
But like, when I would talk about it with people would be like, that wouldn't be the choice I'd make. And I'm like, you don't have to make it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the one to live with it. Like, this is my retirement. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think to do the big things, which you have done, like, sometimes it takes that, like, fucking around and finding out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and like, as I said in the beginning, like, I'm very comfortable in like the unknown.
Yeah.
Like I think this is where my business partner and I are very, very much aligned. In any problem we've ever encountered, we've always seen opportunity. Always. And from like the depths of despair, when like some bad stuff has happened, and we've been like, well, if we take this and like go in this direction, like, I think we're good. And we kind of just like did that like 100 times over. And I'm very thankful for my business partner in that. I'm very thankful that I have that ability, that like, it's where like I can really look at things, and like when we look at projections and numbers, and we're like, let's build in a buffer, and let's like, just in case we don't hit this, and like, what's our contingency? My attitude has always been like, can we talk about like, what if we exceed it? Like, what if we go over? Like, what should we do then? Like, that's what like that.
When are we going to Cabo?
Yeah. Yes. That like gets my eyes like wide, you know? I'm like, and my mind has just always gone there. I'm like, I want to look at like best case scenario.
Yeah.
And like plan for that. And I know everyone's like, it's like plan for the worst, hope for the best. But I'm like, yeah. But like, I don't know. I think that just like, it's just never been the attitude that I've had. I'm a very glass is like all the way full kind of person.
Yeah, me too.
So I think that's like, it's just been a benefit to be able to like see the good in everything. And that like, that comes with heartbreak. It really does. And like, there's been times where Emily and I have been like, this is like, putting a lot of trust into someone or something has led to being like very, very hurt. But I think at the same, I'm like, but if I like pulled back and like kind of disconnected a little bit and like kept everything at like a bit of an arm's length, that would be like protect me like emotionally, personally, I'm like, I just don't think like I'd have any fun with it. So I think to like, for me, in order to do that, I've had to be like very open to like the fun and excitement of it. But you are also open to like the hurt and the heartbreak of it, which is an interesting dichotomy and has been like no question the biggest challenge for me personally over the years, because you're like, there's so many times like, but how could this person do this? Or how, like, it's hard. And like, you know, people say to you like, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. I'm like, personal to me, dude. Like,
no, it's personal.
Like, I was like, it was personal to me when I was up at midnight thinking about it. Like, it's really personal. And, you know, like, yes, it's business, but like you pour your heart into it and it's really personal. So I think it's an interesting kind of, I think about it a lot. Mm-hmm.
That's so wise, because I think that's something that as business owners, like, you know, we have to risk it to get the biscuit. Like at the end of the day, like we have to do tough things, hard things. We have to have hard conversations. Like I don't think and I don't mean this in a like we're better than anyone. Like don't mean that. It's like I don't think everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur.
No,
it is so hard, and there's so many days where I'm like, this is something I brought upon myself.
Oh,
I had a good thing going.
I know when people are like, should I do this? I'm like, no. And I'm like, never.
Very wealthy, very with some generational wealth.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, find a lovely man. No, I'm kidding. But I think that like, it's not for everyone. And like, we talk about that a lot as well, like my business partner and I, because I think I see entrepreneurs do this sometimes when they have a team of people and they post on Instagram or I don't know, different platforms and say, you know, like don't like work for someone else's, like don't do a 9 to 5 for someone else's dream kind of vibe. And I've always like felt very conflicted by that sentiment, because for me, I'm like, well, one, we have people working at our company. Yeah. So I'm like, that feels weird to say. And like,
please keep working for my dream.
Yeah. I'm like, please keep working. Yeah. Please love it. But I think it's like, not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. And I think some people have entrepreneurial skills that they can flex within a corporate environment.
Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And like, I think that that's really cool. And like, I do think that there's been a shift. I think in the last like 5 or so years, when it was very much like run your own business, boss babe, like all of that, I think has kind of gone away, and people like live a soft life. And like I think we're kind of coming back into that a little bit. And like any pendulum swing, it will go like really far one way, then really far another way, and we'll settle somewhere in the middle. But right now, I think like I hope people like love working a 9 to 5 and they go off and like have a lovely life outside of that. I'm like, that's nice too, you know? And I think like, my gosh, I like lust after having that life sometimes. I'm like, imagine if I had a job that when I left, I had just left. Like, imagine like when my old place in Toronto one time, there were these 2 guys. There was like a lot of like filming that would happen in my street, like the shows and whatnot. And there were these 2 guys and they were sitting on seats out the front of my house, and they had to just like put orange cones when a car moved so their big like production trucks could come. And I was like, I could do that.
I'd rock that.
I could be so happy. Yeah. Like imagine if that was my life, I would be thrilled. So like I lust after that sometimes, and it's a funny feeling being like, I'm like, I might never have like a vacation again.
Yeah.
Like I take time off. I'm like really good about it. But like, you know that time you have between 2 jobs?
Yeah.
You're like,
I don't work anywhere. Yeah.
I work nowhere. I have no responsibility. I'm like footloose and fancy free. Like what a dream. So like I think about that as well, that I'm like, it's something that you lose as an entrepreneur. You gain lots of things and you gain a lot of, you know, like some flexibility, but like you're also kind of always on. So I don't know. It's like an interesting thing, but I think there's a bit more of a swing back to like working within companies and like not wanting the stress of, you know, being like we have a team of 70.
Wow.
And that's amazing. And I feel like if I like step outside of myself, I feel like impressed for myself. I think that's really cool. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, like that's 70 people who like I'm responsible for, and like responsible for like they all want to be paid.
Yeah.
Twice every month. My goodness.
I know, like, asking so much.
Too much. So like things like that, I'm like, it's like, you know, there's some like Sunday scaries, but every day of the week things that come along with that. Yeah. But yeah, it's like all in all, like I'm a terrible employee. So like I just like can't go back. I'm not good at it. But I think that like there's some very like wonderful employees, and I hope that they find opportunities within Shine, of course, but within other companies too, where they can have a say and create career paths for themselves. And I think kind of like the advice I said before, like you kind of just have to have the willingness to like speak to someone about that and like put it out there and give it a go. And I think there's like tons of possibilities like within those structures.
Yeah. Jess, I feel like I could talk to you all day. I'm like, this should have been a 5-hour interview, and this has truly
I'll come back. I
please. If you're ever in Toronto, which you are, we should do this like in Toronto. But this is probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. You added so much value, and like just thinking about, I was like total fangirl. I tried to be cool and calm and collected when we met in LA, but did I do a good job? Was I like cool, calm, okay,
you were the coolest.
Oh, thank you so much. Second time I've been called the coolest. Allie, wow, go. But you built something so amazing, and I'm always so impressed, like especially with Canadian businesses. Like, you know, we don't have the same like infrastructure that happens here in the US. As you can see now living in LA, right? Like, and it's so amazing. I love Canadian trailblazers because there's just so many incredible people in Canada that like there's so much like untapped space. Yeah. And so I'm just so grateful that you spent your time. You came all the way from LA to do this. And like, I know Allie's going to interview you next, but I'm just so grateful that you took the time to do this. And I'd love for you to tell people where they can find you and how they can stay connected with you.
Of course. All the usual suspects. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. All of the handles are some variation of Jess Hunichen, but I'm the only Jess Hunichen, so I'm very, very easy to find.
I'll put them all in the show notes.
You put them there. I won't spell it. What a disaster. But yes, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. We'll always take an invitation to come down to a lovely beach house and record a podcast. This was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks so much for listening to Community with me, Kristina Bartold, and I'm just so excited to continue the conversations. If you're looking to grow your community and learn more about social, join us at thesocialbusinessclub.ca and use the code podcast to get your first month for $1. Share this episode with your friends and on social, or leave a review. It means the world.